Welcome back, everyone. No matter where you are, no matter what time it may be, I hope y'all are doing well out there. Tonight's upload, it's a little different. These encounters aren't about running or even surviving. They're about those moments when you realize you're being watched, and whoever or whatever is out there wants you to know it. These are encounters where hiding didn't matter, where the thing in the dark made itself seen, not by accident, but by choice. I want to thank you for being here and thank you for listening. Before I get started, I want to remind you if you've had an encounter of your own and would like to share it here on the channel, be sure and reach out to me. Send me an email. I'd love to hear your story. My email address will be linked in the description below this video. Legends, wherever you may be listening from, remember, sometimes the scariest part isn't what's chasing you. It's what's standing still. Lock in, and let's begin. Everyone grab a drink, lock your doors and windows, hit the lights, and let's get started. Reels. My encounter happened in 2016, and although I don't really like talking about it or know how to begin to even do so, I know I need to, but this is probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. Let's just get this over with. Back then, I used to set up these small hill climb events for dirt bikes, side-by-sides, and ATVs on my property. I'd been a dirt bike guy most of my life. One of my buddies called me old school because I never used the word UTV. Anyway, there was this monster of a hill on the back side of my land that no one could make it up. So naturally, we named it one of our bounty hills. The plan was simple. Bounty Hill, if you don't know what it is a hill that hasn't been topped by anyone, and the first person to climb it gets a cash prize. And if they're the fastest person after that, they get even more. It's nothing official, it's just friends, their machines, and a whole lot of bragging rights. Actually, pretty dangerous stuff if you don't know your limits. A few days before we were supposed to meet, I went back there to clean the path and check for branches or holes, move some big rocks out of the way. I rode my bike out around midday, full sun, nothing weird. But the closer I got to that back ridge, the worse I started to feel. It came on very quickly, too. Nausea, lightheaded, like I was going to throw up. I thought I was dehydrated, so I stopped near the base of the hill and killed the bike. As soon as I took my helmet off to get some water, I was hit with this high-pitched metallic ring in my ears. I'm talking loud. So loud it felt like it was inside my skull. It lasted maybe 5 or 6 seconds, then it stopped, and I threw up right there beside my bike. It was that violent. Before I could even catch my breath, I heard something coming from the woods ahead of me. Not branches snapping, but full-on trees cracking. Heavy, like something the size of a pickup truck moving fast. I looked up, expecting a bear was about to doze me over. What I saw was standing on 2 legs. And yes, I know full well, I don't need anyone to remind me of how this sounds. But that's what I saw. I don't know what else to tell you. This thing was pretty big. It was easy 8 or 9 feet. Wolf-shaped head, broad shoulders, long arms that ended in what appeared to me to be hands. There was no claws that I could really make out, just big, skinny fingers. It looked like raccoon hands on steroids. Its legs bent backwards like a dog's, and it had a long tail that almost touched the ground before curling back upward. It wasn't coming for me. It was running across the lower part of the ridge and then straight up that hill like it was nothing. It moved fast, but not wild. It almost looked like it was showing off. When it reached the top, it jumped, cleared the ledge, and twisted in midair so that when it landed, it was facing me, like it wanted me to see that. When it landed, it just froze there. I couldn't move. I couldn't even control my body. My bladder let go. God, that's embarrassing. It was like my body just stopped listening to me. I don't know if it was fear or something that thing did, but I've never had anything like that ever happen to me before or since. It just stood there looking at me, not breathing hard or even blinking. It was just locked in. Then its head turned away from me, off to the left, toward this hollow where the creek runs. It looked that way for a few seconds, then turned back to me. That's when it did something that I could never forget. It raised its hands, kind of smiled or smirked, like it knew something that I didn't, and then it covered its ears. Right after that, that same metallic sound hit me again, only this time it was coming from down in that hollow, 10 times louder. My whole skull vibrated, my eyes felt like they were going to pop. I dropped to my knees and covered my ears, but it did not help. When it finally stopped, I thought for sure that thing would be right on top of me. But when I looked up, it was gone. The woods were quiet for a second, then all the normal sounds just came back. Birds, bugs, everything was back. Like someone had just had an on or off switch that they were playing with. The sickness was gone too. I had a slight, mild headache, but just like that, everything was normal. Needless to say, I didn't get out of there fast enough. I nearly killed myself on that bike getting home. I had it pinned as much as I could handle it. I didn't tell anyone, didn't hold the event. I just acted like I'd changed my mind about the hill. Safety, I was afraid someone would get hurt. The truth was, I couldn't stand the thought of going back up there. I would get nauseous, sick, just thinking about it. I still own that land, I still live there, but I won't go back to that backside ridge. There's nothing back there for me, except bad memories, and possibly worse. I've told one other person before now. He never laughed at me. He told me he believed that I saw something, or he believed that I believed I saw something. But I could tell the way he talked about it and the way he looked at me that he thought I was crazy. I'm not looking for anyone to believe me, don't misunderstand. I know what I saw, and I don't need anyone's confirmation. I just needed to get it out. After all this time. J.M. R.A. This all took place in the fall of 2018, up in mid-Michigan. I'd just bought a little place outside of town. It was my first real home. Kind of a fixer-upper, it's all I could afford. I was pretty young. The property backed up to a line of woods that ran for miles. The realtor told me it was all private land past my fence line, so I didn't think much about it. Now, I lived there about 6 months before anything strange started happening. That particular night was a stormy one. It was cold rain and wind. Around 9:30 at night, the lights started flickering and then the whole house just went dark. This wasn't something out of the ordinary. The power goes out around here all the time. I grabbed a flashlight, checked my phone, and of course, no signal. Out there, if my Wi-Fi was down, everything was down. I figured I'd go out to the garage and flip the main breaker just in case it tripped. I stepped outside and I realized how dead quiet it was out there. You notice things like this when you're comfortable living out here. Usually you'd still hear frogs or something out near the ditch, but there was nothing. As I walked toward the garage, I caught movement near the shed behind it. My first thought was that it was a neighbor's dog, but when I hit it with the flashlight, it stopped. There was something standing between me and the shed. It was tall and upright. The light hit it halfway, catching the side of its body. The rest of it was still in the dark. I couldn't really see it. I could see enough to know that it was a big animal, and covered in hair, and what I saw of the face looked to be canine. The long muzzle was clear, the muzzle like a coyote, actually, but was much bigger. I saw it very clear. No one can argue that. What got me was that it didn't move when the light hit it. It just stood there like it had been waiting for me to shine the light on it. The light was shaking in my hand, and the thing never even moved. Not like an animal would in a light. Usually if a light hits an animal, especially a nocturnal one, it's gone. This thing never flinched, never paid attention, never showed me any signs of being nervous. After a few seconds, it stepped back. Not like it was retreating, just a few slow steps into the dark until it was gone. I kept the flashlight pointed where it had been, but there was nothing there. I started going back toward the house, trying to keep my eyes on the shed. I still had this feeling like I was being watched, and I got a strong feeling that it was definitely still out there. When I got to the porch, the power came back on. Every light in the house flickered, and the radio in the kitchen crackled. Just like that, everything was back. The rest of that night I sat at the table, looking out the window toward that shed. I didn't know what I'd seen, but I kinda wanted to see it again. I couldn't see anything in the yard. Around midnight, I started to feel stupid. I thought I'd scared myself over a deer or a shadow. I had seen something wrong or saw it at a weird glance or glare. It was a trick. My mind had fooled me. The next morning, I went out there to prove it to myself, to look for any prints or anything, proof that there was something there. The ground was soft from the rain, as I expected, hence why I was anxious to see tracks. Right where I'd seen it stand, there were in fact some impressions in the mud. These weren't boot tracks, not animal tracks either. These were something out of a storybook. They looked long, deep prints like something heavy had been planted there for a while. I filled them in with a shovel and haven't looked behind that shed after dark since. I don't want to see it again. I've decided that it's best. Once is enough. Nothing like that's happened after that, and I'm still here. But I swear, every now and then, the power still cuts out, obviously. But if it does, even for a second, that thought enters my mind. That memory clouds my judgment. I get the same cold feeling in my stomach. I feel like that thing is out there, waiting for me to come outside again. Anonymous. Real adventures. I'm glad to finally get in touch with you. My encounter is not really something I tell many people about, but if someone asks, and they genuinely want to know and they're not trying to make fun of me, I'll usually tell them. I work for a small landscaping company outside of Stillwater, Oklahoma. We look after several properties, mostly trimming, clearing, and fixing storm damage after bad weather. What I'm about to type out here happened in 2019, sometime around the early summer. One of our clients owned about 15 acres behind his house. It was a lot of scrub oak and cedar. A tornado, level windstorm had come through the week before. We were hired to clear downed limbs. It was just me that afternoon. My partner had clocked out early, and I figured I could finish the job alone. I was running a chainsaw about 50 yards into the trees, cutting up small trunks and tossing them into piles. The heat was rough. I remember that very clearly. There was no wind at all. Of course, I couldn't cool off. It was miserable. It was that thick Oklahoma humidity. If you know, you know. After an hour or so, I started to get that crawling feeling. Like I wasn't alone. That feeling you get when someone is standing directly behind you, but you spin around and nothing's there. I decided to kill the saw and listen. At first there was no sign of anything. I just heard cicadas and a little bit of highway noise from the distance. I caught a shuffle off to my right. It wasn't extremely loud or noticeable, but it was there. It was steady. It sounded like someone lifting their weight from one foot and dropping it down onto the other. I turned around and saw something crouched a few yards out. I thought it was a deer because of the dark brown color, and it was pretty low to the ground. But it straightened up. Whatever it was, it didn't run. It stood upright, unfolded, like a damn spring or something. It's hard to explain. This thing just unrolled itself. This is when I could see the outline very well, through the gaps in the brush. It had a huge wide chest and a narrow waist. The head was shaped almost identical to that of a Doberman pinscher. The ears were tall and pointed straight up just like the dog. I screamed, "Hey," really loud, more out of nerves than anything. It didn't move, didn't even look my way. It did kind of flinch its head a little, like it shook really quick, like a fly or a bug had bitten its ear and it just kind of shook its head. I still had the saw in one hand and the bar oil can in the other. I remember realizing the saw wasn't going to be any kind of weapon. It started walking, but that's when it turned and was keeping its eyes on me the whole time it was moving. I could feel my pulse in my throat. When I squeezed the throttle on the chainsaw, the sound ripped through the woods and it moved faster. It done a short, smooth glide to the side, staying in view, but never got any closer. It was circling me. That made my skin crawl, like it was covered in bugs. It was like it wanted to make sure that I had seen it. There was no bluff charge. It wasn't hiding. It was just there. Almost like it was challenging me to a duel. I don't know why I felt that way, but I felt like it was challenging me, like it was welcoming a fight, like it was daring me to challenge it, which is something that only a fool would do after seeing it. That is a battle you are not going to win. Trust me. I made my way back to the edge of the clearing. The minute I was back in the open, it turned and off into the trees and was history. It didn't make a sound as it moved through that scrub. I don't know how that's possible, but I watched it happen. I heard nothing. Not a sound. I shut everything down, loaded the truck, and left a full hour earlier than planned. My boss gave me a hard time for bailing, but I don't really give a crap. I went back with the crew a few days later. The same spot. Looked normal, except for one cedar that had been pushed over at the roots. We were all joking that it must have been the wind still working on it, but it hadn't been loose before. I've worked in this type of industry for quite a while, years. Plenty of people around have no issues, but I still don't like cutting alone out there. If I stop the saw for a second, and it's quiet, I will get this weird thought in my head, and that same feeling will come again. I don't know what these things are. I can't give anyone any information that they don't already have. I'm sure I have just as many, if not more, questions than you do. I'm looking for answers as well. Tell me this. Most of these people's encounters involve creatures trying to stay hidden, or staying in the dark, hiding behind trees, or some of them climbing on the roof of the house. Why do some of them try to stay hidden, and others want to be seen? That is the number one question in my mind. I don't ask, where did they come from? What are they? Why are they here? Those things don't really matter to me until I absolutely know what they are. None of these other questions really matter until you can come to the term that they're actually real. Actually, what you saw was real, and it wasn't a figment of your imagination like people will push you to believe. It's their behaviors that stump me. I can't notice any patterns in their behaviors. Now, granted, a lot of them do have similarities, but they differ so much, it doesn't make any sense. Well, that's the end of my encounter and the extent of my knowledge. Thank you. B. I live out in North Mississippi, not too far from Tupelo. Tupelo. Sorry if I butchered that. I'm pretty good at doing that. My nearest neighbor is an older lady named Miss Tatum. She's widowed, in her late 70s. Real sweet woman. I've helped her with little things over the years. Cutting her grass, hauling some firewood, stuff like that. This happened in the spring of 2020, about a week after a storm had rolled through. One of the trees behind her old barn split halfway down the trunk and was leaning right over the roof. She asked if I could come take a look before it fell and busted the place up. It was warm that afternoon. The sun was out bright, no wind at all. Beautiful day. I drove my side-by-side down the fence line, parked behind her barn, and grabbed my saw. The tree wasn't terrible, but it was hanging heavy. I decided to take it down before it finished the job on its own. While I was walking around, sizing up the lean, I caught sight of something down past her pasture. 2 fence posts apart, maybe 50 yards out. There was something between them, standing dead still. It would have been hard to see unless you were really paying attention. Had it not moved, ever so slightly, it would have remained unknown to me for sure. I would have never seen it. At first, my brain just went straight to, it's another busted section of trunk from the storm, 'cause it was black and standing upright. When you see something standing upright that big, your thought doesn't go, ooh, that's a big animal. No, animals don't stand like that, and they're not that big. Then it started moving, unfortunately. It wasn't fast movements, and I've heard some people say they have these jerky type movements. No, this wasn't that. It was smoother. It shifted from side to side only a few inches. It was almost as if it was trying to get my attention without moving closer. I stood there staring for a good few seconds, trying to figure out what I was looking at. It was close to 8 feet, if I had to take an educated guess. It was broad through the shoulders and back. The sun hit it enough that I could tell it was definitely covered in dark hair, but it wasn't shaggy like you would expect, like a bear. I called out, hoping it was one of the neighbors' farm hands just messing around. I got no answer. The shape started swaying again, almost like it was trying to make sure that I was seeing it clearly. I remember the hairs standing up on my neck and arms. I couldn't explain why, but I knew right then I didn't want to be standing out there. I went toward the barn, trying to keep it in sight the whole time. It didn't move any closer, it just kept standing in that same spot, letting me walk away. Now keep that in mind. It let me walk away. Remember that. Miss Tatum came out onto her back porch right about then. I waved her off and told her I'd come back the next day when I had a better saw blade. She looked confused, but I didn't wait to explain. When I did come back the next morning, the tree was down. There was no cut marks, no chainsaw marks, just snapped clean halfway up the trunk like something had pushed it until it broke. I don't think I could have hooked my truck up to it with a chain and broke it like that. The amount of force it would have taken is ungodly, unspeakable. Both fence posts that thing had been standing between were bent inward toward the pasture. Miss Tatum said she didn't hear anything during the night, but her dog had barked for hours, pacing from door to door. She thought there were coyotes out there, so she stayed inside. I cut up what was left of the tree, but I kept my truck close to me that time, and I was constantly looking over my shoulder. The whole time I was working, I couldn't get rid of the feeling that that thing was out there watching from the same spot, but there was nothing out there. I checked 100 times. Now, I haven't experienced anything before that, and I haven't seen anything weird after. But you can bet your retirement fund that there isn't a day that passes me that I don't think about all of the stuff that happened there. All of the questions that doesn't make sense. Even if you had an answer, it wouldn't answer anything. None of that makes any sense. How did that tree get taken down like that? There's no way the wind did it. It didn't do it on its own. Something did that. And I have a feeling I know what it was. I just don't know how it's possible. S.M. Dear Reels, my encounter with a Dogman was in 2021. It was right outside of Statesville, North Carolina. I work nights and usually get off around midnight. Second shift is just lovely. The drive home is about 20 minutes on some back roads. It's mostly woods with a few open fields here and there. It's quiet out there. Barely any traffic, especially that time of night. We live off one of those gravel roads that splits off the highway. The driveway runs a couple 100 feet up to the house. There's a metal bar gate right at the front you have to open by hand. It's a farm-style gate with a chain you loop around the post. It's nothing fancy, but it is enough to keep people from pulling in uninvited. That night I remember being extremely tired, but not completely out of it. I wasn't drinking, I wasn't on medication, I'm not an addict or anything. It was just a normal work night. I had my music playing, the same road I always take. I come around the last curve and slowed down when I saw the gate reflect in the headlights. Everything looked as it should. No reason to feel uneasy. I stopped in front of it, left the car running and the lights on. I got out to unhook the chain. I do it the same way every single night. Slip the loop, swing the gate, drive through, shut it behind me. I was halfway to the latch when I saw movement out of the corner of my eye. It came from off to the right just beyond the ditch line where the trees start. I remember turning my head and freezing because something was standing there, clear, in the edge of the headlights. This thing was standing on two legs. It was extremely tall, but the shape, I could not figure it out. My brain just could not come to terms with it. The shoulders were huge. This thing was as wide as a door frame. Its arms were very long and skinny, hanging way down past its waist. The head was extremely large, did not fit the frame of the body at all. When my brain finally caught up to what I was seeing, it didn't want to accept it, and neither did I. I realized the head looked like a canine or a dog. This thing looked like a werewolf. This sounds crazy. I know that, you know that, we all know that. But we also know that these things are out there. That's just what it looked like. I can't make this up. I wouldn't make this up. There's no reason for me to do that. This was a dog's head on a ginormous person's body. That is the best description you can give. Its eyes did reflect yellow from the headlights, and it stood there, unmoving. I never saw it take a step. It was just watching me. It would make you think that maybe it thought I hadn't seen it or it was trying to stay undiscovered. But I don't feel like that's the case at all. I have a different theory on this. I think it knew that I'd spotted it. I think it stood there and waited on me. I think it knew my schedule. I think it wanted me to see it. But my first reaction was not fear. It was just straight confusion. My mind was spinning, trying to find a normal explanation. But there isn't one. Then the fear hit, and it hit fast. My stomach dropped to my feet, and I remember my knees got really weak. I backed up without thinking, still facing it, and reached behind me for the door handle. I got in, slammed the door, and hit the locks out of pure habit. I didn't sit there to process anything. I just threw it in drive and hit the gas. The gate wasn't fully open. I didn't care. I just rammed it and pushed through it with the bumper. The chain snapped off the post, and I went up the driveway slinging gravel. When I looked in the rearview mirror, it was still there. It hadn't moved an inch. It had turned and watched me and was now facing me again. It was standing just off the roadside, right beside the gate. Like I said, still facing my car. The eyes were still glowing, even though there was no light for them to catch. This thing's eyes were self-illuminated. That is 100%. I made it up to the house, and I parked right under the porch light and ran inside. I could barely get the key in the door. I've never been so terrified. I locked everything I could and went straight to the bedroom. My husband was half asleep and asked me what was going on. I told him I thought I saw a bear standing up by the gate. He just mumbled something like, "They won't bother you if you don't mess with them," and went back to sleep. I didn't even bother. I sat up most of the night replaying it over and over, trying to make sense of it. I wanted it to be a bear. I really did. But bears just can't stand that still. They don't stare people down like that. And they definitely don't have arms that long or shoulders that broad. And I don't know of any creature that has eyes that light up like a lantern. Since that night, I don't stop at the gate anymore. I'll get out during the day, open it wide, and leave it open until I'm home for the night. I'd rather risk somebody driving up there than have to stop out there in the dark again. Now, I haven't heard of any experiences besides mine in my area. You may have different information, or someone else may have some. I haven't heard it. This is the first Dogman sighting I've heard anyone bring up out of this part of the country. I know there's been numerous ones in the state, but not from this area as far as I know. Oh yes, there's been many from your area. Sorry to disappoint. Thank God I haven't seen it since then. You don't know how it feels to come home, and every time you come upon your driveway, you expect to see the scariest thing you've ever seen in your life. But by some streak of luck, or what I would call divine intervention, I've had no more experiences that I can't explain. I can't explain what I saw. I won't even try to or pretend to know. All I do know, deep down, I can feel it in my bones. Whatever this thing was, whatever it wanted, it definitely knew that I could see it. It stood in the exact spot where it knew I would see it. This thing was not trying to hide. I think it wanted to terrify me. I think it got a kick out of it. I don't know. That's just my thoughts on the matter. Maybe someone else has a different opinion. I would be up to hearing those. Thank you, Reels. I truly enjoy your channel. K. Friends, legends, family. If you happen to make it this far, thank you for being here. It means a hell of a lot. Every encounter you just heard came from someone who still cannot shake or understand what they saw. And it's not because it attacked them or tried to hurt them in any way, but because it wanted to be noticed. It wanted to be seen. That's a different kind of fear, the kind that will stay with you long after the events take place. If you enjoyed tonight's upload, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on so you don't miss the next one. If you've got an encounter of your own, send it over to the email in the description. I'll reply as soon as possible. I want to thank these individuals for sending these encounters. Without people like you, there would be no stories to tell. You keep the channel going, you keep this train moving, you keep the blood pumping through the veins of this community. I cannot thank you enough. Much respect. Before I close this out, anyone that's interested in the poster giveaway, that will be taking place Halloween night, October 31st. I have a special episode already planned out. It's going to be a bit longer than usual, and the encounters are some that I've debated on not sharing at all due to the graphic nature, but as I've said before, all of these encounters deserve to be heard. But just keep in mind, Halloween night might not be the night to allow your little ones to listen with you. I'll leave that up to you to decide. But I have to give this warning in advance. I also received the custom channel posters and the stickers today. I'll be talking about that soon as well. I'll let you guys know if you're interested in ordering a sticker or a poster, how we're going to do that. But that's enough rambling. That's going to do it for this one, y'all. Everyone stay safe out there. I love each and every one of you. Until next time, my friends, watch over your loved ones. Keep your head on a swivel. And as always, good night.